Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rusty 78609. Welcome to Beer 30. Here's to you, here's to me. Chug a lug. Muy bueno, guys. Muy bueno. Yeah, this is a little chill out sanity session on Fridays that I do, mainly for myself. Others can enjoy it too, join us and have fun. But anyway, yeah, for you guys that have worked hard all week, you deserve a little pat on the back. Whatever it is, whatever your choice, iced tea, ice water, beer, whatever, whatever you want to rig up, it's your choice. But I drove to town in my cart, my Yamasita is what somebody's called it, and yeah, worked out fine. Yeah, it's about 3 miles round trip, and I used 10% of the battery to do that. I went to the post office, the grocery store. Where else did I go? Oh, and I stopped by Lopez Bakery and got me some nachos for supper tonight. So we're good to go for everything, guys. But anyway, yeah, I was going to just do a little reminiscing, but just remember this is a sanity session, not an insanity session. It's easy to be insane. I think you kind of have to work at being sane nowadays. It's not a given, you know what I mean? But let's see what this thing does here. This is that positive energy button. Some of you may remember it.
You do your absolute best in all things. You are a success. Make it a great day.
Well, I'm working on it, Chief.
You are unique. You are powerful. You are strong. You are special.
That's it. I couldn't have put it better myself. But anyway, guys, some of you know I'm going to just ramble on about when I was growing up and stuff. I've got a playlist for growing up in South Texas or something like that, or growing up in Texas or whatever. And to remember just individual stories. Those are kind of like dead ends. You know what I mean? They're about this long, or what I can remember. So we'll just start kind of randomly at about age 5 or 6. Well, let's see. Well, we'll start the earliest years I can remember. That would be at what was called then. It was about 3.5 miles out of town, out of Kennedy, Texas. Population, I don't know, back then 2,500 maybe. But it was an agricultural community. There was a little oil and gas around there, or maybe a lot at that time, because we had a lot of oil companies exploring and doing stuff. We'll get to that later. But I started my life on the Tobe place. My dad was a sharecropper. In other words, he leased land to farm from people that owned the land, and he would receive a share of the proceeds. And how much that was, I don't know specifically, but sometimes it was usually, it depended on whatever deal you could work out. If the land hadn't been used in a while and you had to fertilize and all that stuff, anyway, it could be negotiated a lot of different ways. But sometimes the sharecropper got a quarter, sometimes a half, sometimes up to 3/4, just depending on what was going on at that time. And so, but anyway, Daddy did pretty good doing that. And we lived at the Toad place till about 1950, 51 in there, and then we moved to another place. My daddy bought some property, and with the property he had leased, I think we had about 1,200 acres that we were farming, and which was a lot, and it was a lot. I mean, we had a lot of farm equipment. We had a John Deere ABG Poppin' Johnny, and we also had a Massey Harris 44. We had 2 combines. We had a corn picker and some other stuff. I don't know. We didn't have a cotton stripper. We borrowed one every now and then. But early on, the cotton pickers came out of Mexico in trucks and did the cotton picking, and they just moved with the cotton crops, and there's no said about that. But yeah, at the place I really remember was the place that we bought on the hill, about 3 miles out of town, and Kennedy, and a beautiful place, man. Up on the hill, had a great view. Just a small home. Had 2 regular bedrooms, and then one bedroom that was kind of a I don't know, place where the previous owner had kept some plants. It was just a small room. Well, that became the 3rd bedroom for my brother and I, which was really pretty small, but it worked out all right. We know nobody complained. I mean, it was better than what we had at the Toad place, because at the Toad place we didn't even have indoor plumbing. Well, I take it back. We had a thing mother pumped. You primed it and she'd pump and water would come out. And then we also had outdoor toilet and stuff. And it was cold in the winter and hot in the summer. But of course we didn't know that because that's the way it was, you know. But in about 1955, we got our first TV. Weighed about 200 pounds. You know, they had a little screen like this. You know what I mean? I used to sit and watch the test pattern because that's about all we got. And you remember, those of you my age or a little younger, you probably remember adjusting the TV antenna to get to get it clear. You know what I mean? And somebody be outside, you say, "Oh, hold it right there. That's good." You know, about as good as it get. And sometimes the picture would come in and out, and the programming was only a few hours a day during the week, and so can't talk much about the programming because it just wasn't there. And it wasn't a factor in our life because we weren't used to having it. So sometimes we'd go days, weeks without even turning the thing on. Of course, when we got hooked on it, Wednesday night wrestling, Cyclone Anio, Duke Camuco, and all that stuff, then it started kind of invading our lives in small ways. I don't remember all of us watching much. Every now and then we might watch Danger or Suspense Theater later on, maybe 1958 in there, whenever that came out. I don't remember. And of course you had Jackie Gleason and the Honeymooners and the Ed Sullivan Show. We had all that stuff. But that was the entertainment when TV came out. But we still, because it was so hot in the summers, you didn't want to be in the house. We had one little oscillating electric fan. That's all we had. One. That's it. One. Yeah, and it was in the living room right by. It was actually underneath the TV, and that was it. There was no air conditioning at all, and yeah, you'd leave the windows open. Yeah, it was hot, hot, hot. Yeah, it was very uncomfortable, and yeah, we sit out on the front porch and would look at the stars, and that was before there was anything else up there. There was no satellites, no nothing. So if you saw something moving, it probably was something moving. You know what I mean? And now, hell, it's the whole sky moves. So, but it was a good childhood. And then let's see, what else can I think of? Oh, here's one. Some of you will remember. Remember the old transistor radios? Yeah, they were little bitty radios, man. They were about this thick, or maybe less, or about this thick, about the size of a pack of cigarettes. They were transistor radios, had a little dial on them, and they had a little thing you stuck in your ear, and had a little wire that went to the transistor radio, and if you moved it real slow, every now and then you could pick up a station, a radio station out of somewhere, and no matter what it was, you'd listen to it because it was exciting. I mean, so but we were able to get Wolfman Jack out of Del Rio, Texas. That was a big guy. I mean, that was a big deal to listen to Wolfman Jack, and yeah, he came out of. I think he was actually in Mexico doing the broadcast. It could have been in Del Rio. It was about 200 miles from Kennedy, and the signal would go in and out. But you could pick him up sometimes late at night, and that was kind of interesting. But a transistor radio, they weren't very expensive. You could buy them for, I don't know, $1 or $2, maybe $2. But that was a lot of money, and so that's the Wolfman Jack story. Most of y'all probably remember that guy. And then as far as the farming, that was we farmed crops. Of course we had corn, cotton, and then there was a crop that was called maize. But maize can be confused with corn. Indians or Native Americans call it a maize. But maize was a little seed about the size of I can't think of any, less than the size of a piece of popcorn, a kernel of popcorn, about half the size. But it was called maize, and we planted a lot of that. And you'd had a good year, but we didn't irrigate, and so Mother Nature was, sometimes she was good to us, and sometimes she wasn't. But anyway, there was always something to do, and then of course we had we had hogs. I've talked about this 1,000 times, but when I'd get home from school, I don't know how many head of hogs we had. We had a damn bunch, man. I don't know, a lot. Never counted them, but we had 3 feeders that held about 500 pounds each, and we'd fill those, probably 3 times a week, fill them up, and that was a job because we had an old cistern. That was our, it was up off the ground about 15 feet maybe, a big old tank, and we had a windmill that pumped water into it, and that was our water system for the whole place. And we had one little spigot there at the windmill, and then of course we had a few faucets in the house. We had two sinks, one in, let's see, we had one in the kitchen, one in the hallway, one in the bathroom. We had three sinks, one bathtub, one toilet. It was a one holder, but it was at least it was indoors. And for the hogs to get water to them, we had a 50-gallon drum, and that little hose that we had was about as big around my little finger. Seemed like wasn't much to it, and it was about, I don't know, 100. I think we rigged up about 150 feet of that damn thing, and that's how I filled up the water tanks or the 50-gallon drums for the hogs. And but the water ran so slow that when I got home from school, the first thing I do is go put that hose in that 50-gallon tank and turn it on. Okay, and because it took 45 minutes for that thing to fill up, and you had to fill up two of them, and so that took most of the time. And then at the bottom of that 50-gallon drum was a little trough at the bottom, about like this, and in the center it had a float that moved up and down that would let water, when those things were full, the float would be up and it'd cut the water off. But when the hogs drank it, the float would drop, water would come in. But in between there, where that float was, the hogs, they try to root in there and knock the mud off their nose, so that mud would get up under that float, and then it couldn't come down to cut on, so they wouldn't get any water. So you always had to clean that, and God almighty, that stinking messy mud. Anyway, enough said about that. But it was a chore. That had to be done every day. You didn't have to fill the feeders every day, but you did have to check them and be sure that the feed was coming out, because the hogs would lift up those. There was lids that the hogs could lift up and get in there and eat the food, but the feed came out right up here. Okay, it was a little opening, and whenever they ate the food, it would continue to come out. And but what they do, they'd hit it with their nose, and they'd have mud on their nose, and they'd clog that thing up. So you had to clean that out. That was another. The damn chores never ended. You know what I mean? And then we had some bags of stuff that we had to would feed. It was a pellets about as big around as maybe your little finger, about maybe like this long, and they were pellets. But that was kind of a treat. So well, it wasn't a treat. It was really to put the meat on those hogs. And sometimes you feed those pellets to them. Just that was up to Daddy, whatever he said. He said feed them, I fed them. That's all. I was the hired hand, and me and old Andreas. And but anyway, then you had to feed all the sows that had litters. They were kept separately. You had those in separate pens, and you had a board set up so that the little ones could get out and then back in, because they had to be able to get back in, because the old boar would eat them. And so you had to be, they had to set it up so they could get in and keep this and survive. That was, and you had to feed them separately. That was a job. And then what else? Let me think. The hogs. Hogs. Let's see. Let me think. Well, of course, we live in the country, so we had to ride a school bus, and the school bus driver we had his name was Old Man McDonald. I don't know if he had a first name, but whenever he opened the door, you didn't want to be standing there, because he spit. Okay, he chewed tobacco, and the first thing you do is spit a stream of tobacco out there, and then you could get on the bus. But it only took you one time to learn, and the old bus was crap. Sometimes it would die, and you'd have to push to get it started, or it'd get stuck in the mud. It was a mess. And but let's see what else. Yeah, we did. No AC, none of that stuff. Phone. We were on a 4-party line. Most of y'all probably remember that. And but then in that at that time, at least in Kennedy, Texas, for our family and my friend's family, or most of my friends, some of them probably got exempt from this, but I got to have a drink of beer. Boy, my mouth's getting dry. Here's to you, here's to me. Chug love. Looking back helps me remain sane, because life was it simpler then? Not really. It probably in a lot of ways was more complicated. But I just remember it as good times. My growing up was good times, as far as I can tell. But again, the rule back when I was growing up was when you reached age 18, as a boy, I guess girls too, you were out. You were expected to be out working and making your own living. And so when I turned 18, my first job out of high school, well, I had a job with a guy named Hooley Harold driving a cotton stripper, or I had a cotton stripping crew, and we would go from field to field. I was in charge of some other guys, and we'd strip cotton, and then haul that strip cotton into the gin and all that stuff. That was probably, but it didn't last that long. Because the cotton stripping machines were there for only a few years, and then the cotton pickers came in. The machine that did it was a different concept, and so a lot of that was eliminated. And then shortly thereafter, I really moved up in the world. I was on the jug line. Okay, it was looking for oil. They call it the jug line, and you had you laid out this cable. First of all, this cable had these little connections on it about every 10 feet or so, and you hooked up these things called jugs to that cable, and you stuck them in the ground. And there's another name for it, may come to me. And it was a seismograph crew, is what it was. And we traveled all over South Texas with them, Cotulla, and of course, we went around Gonzales for a while. Well, we never were around Kennedy, but we were down in the like Freer in that area for a while in the summer. God dang, it was hot, 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 man. And yeah, we had a 5-gallon water cooler on those old trucks we drove, and you put a block ice. You didn't put crushed ice in. We'd get block ice and put in there one big block, and then fill it up with water, and then they had these little chocolate. Like chocolate milk containers that were about this high and about this big around. They were made out of metal cans. You had to have a can opener to get them open. And I'd buy 3 or 4 of those and put that cap wire, and I'll tell you what that is in a second. But I'd wrap them in cap wire and drop them down in that water cooler to keep them cold. So when I got ready to have one, it'd be cold. And the other guys put their soda water in there too, same way. But the cap wire was for dynamite. We actually had to set charges. The crew ahead of us was the drilling crew, and they would drill holes about 115 to 150 feet deep, or 85 to 150 feet, depending on where we were, and whatever the guy in the recording truck told them to do. That was all done in advance. And so what we would do then, we had these plastic tubes of dynamite, and I want to say they were 5 pounds each, could have been more, but they were links about this long, and they screwed together, and we'd usually put 15 pounds in a hole, depending on how deep it was, and then you fix the cap wire, and then you drop this down the hole, and just the weight of the dynamite would carry it down in the hole. And sometimes it would try to float because there might be some water in there, but that's the way it goes. It was heavy enough it'd go right on through, and it would sink through some of that water. You had to wait for it to sink on down there, and then you'd set off that charge. And hell, sometimes it'd blow water 200 feet straight up in the air, and then if you were downwind, like when you were just starting out like I was, they say, okay, now Rusty, you get over here and stand over here, because they knew the wind was blowing that way. It'd blow the water straight up in the air, and you'd be sitting there looking at it, and next thing you know, you get a bath, that old muddy water. Did I do that? Yeah, I got initiated just like everybody else did. But anyway, I got to have some more beer, man. Here's to you. How we doing here? We're doing fine. But anyway, I'm just reminiscing, guys. I'm sure all you guys had some crazy jobs when you were young too. But I just remember that one because it was hot. If you sat down on the ground to eat under a shade tree and you just sat there on the ground, the tarantulas would crawl up on you. Sometimes it only took one time. The next thing you were in the back of the truck. You understand? We'd back the truck up in the shade and sit there and eat, or sit on the tailgate, because there was usually 3 on a crew. You had a driver that would, and we rotated the jobs, and then you had 2 others, and you had these cables were on what we call reels, and the reels were about this wide, and they held a 1/4 mile of cable about as big as your little finger, and there were every 10 feet there was a connection, or I think 10 feet, maybe more 15, but you had a 1/4 mile of cable, and we'd lay out 5 miles, or let's see, is that right? A mile or 2 in front and in back of the recording truck. And so then when they set off the charges, they'd get readings from that whole area, and then we'd move on. So we could cover a lot of area in a day. We covered miles and miles. But no, that was just plain old hard work. And I guess I thought I was going to make a career out of it, but I didn't. And here I got to have another swaller here. Here's to you. Here's to me. Mm. Tell you something funny we did. Well, it wasn't funny for the armadillo. Funny for us. We caught an armadillo, and we put it in after we put the dynamite in the hole. The damn we were going to just put the damn armadillo in the hole, but we let go and he ran in the damn hole. I thought, well, and you can't get them out, man. I mean, when they dig in, you can't hardly pull them out. So anyway, he went down the hole enough, and we couldn't get it. Well, we didn't really try that hard to get him out because we wanted to see what happened. So anyway, we set the charge off, and there went a flying armadillo about 100 feet up in the air or so. And the crazy thing about it was that armadillo hit the ground, and I don't think it was injured. I mean, it took off. I thought, well, hell, that's amazing, isn't it? Now, I'll tell you something else we did with that dynamite. We weren't supposed to do it. If we got caught, we'd got put in jail probably. But we decided we were going to go fishing in the San Antonio River. And we'd heard about these guys that would use electric, they call it telephoning the fish. You put wires in there and it'd put out electric current. You'd crank this thing and it'd put out, and the fish would get electrocuted or shocked, and they'd come to the top. It'd just knock them out for a little bit, and they'd come floating to the top. And you just pick them up. Well, we were going to do one better than that. We got 5 pounds of dynamite, put the cap wire on it, got the detonator, and we put it out in the river, See, we had fish everywhere, man. Boom! Yeah, that was not our smartest one. And then one time, there was a hole, there was a cliff. I guess you'd say it was a cliff on the edge of the river. The river had worn it down, and it was up about, I don't know, probably 75 feet above the river. But the hole that they drilled was about, maybe 15 yards from that edge, okay? And anyway, the recording truck, we told the guy, there's a cliff there. And he said, don't worry about it. Go ahead, just put in 10 pounds or whatever. And we did. And goddamn, lucky we didn't park the truck that way. We caved in the whole damn river, man. The river was dammed up. I'm not kidding. It caved in from where the hole was all the way to the river. But it wasn't fast. It just started falling, and it all just crumbled right down into the river. Get out of here, man. I thought, look what we've done now. We've dammed up the river, but it didn't take long. It was only a few minutes, well, probably an hour later, the water worked around an edge, and a few days later it was gone. I thought the recording truck guy, we called him Iron Pants because he always wore ironed khaki pants. And Iron Pants said, just keep your mouth shut, boys. We're moving on tomorrow. The honor system. This is Sanity session. Here's to you guys. Mm-hmm. So what else can I tell you guys? Not much. I mean, I will tell you this. And this is a true story. I was and am probably one of the most ignorant people. I don't mean stupid. I mean ignorant in the sense that I didn't know a lot of things and I wasn't exposed to a lot of things when I was growing up. And I can remember when I I got a job one time, part-time. I was about, 22, maybe 21, 22, at a job. I got a job hired at Sears in San Antonio, Central Park Mall, in men's furnishings. Now, why they hired me in men's furnishings, who knew absolutely nothing about ties, shirts, suits, shoes, or shit. I didn't know anything, okay? I mean, nothing. I didn't know how to tie a tie. What I would do, I'd get those clip-on kind. And anyway, the department manager said, "Oh, you can't, don't wear those clip-ons in here. You got to get get regular tie." I said, "Well, that's a damn good idea. I have no clue how to tie one." I didn't tell him that. But I got one guy that worked in the suit department to tie a tie for me, and I wore that same tie for probably a year. I mean, until I figured it out on my own. I mean, that's just ignorance, isn't it? But never traveled anywhere, didn't know anything. As far as being worldly, zero. Streetwise, zero. I trusted everybody. Everybody was honest, in my opinion. No kidding, man. It was just like I was in Kennedy, Texas, everywhere I went. Well, guess what I found out? That ain't true. People will lie. They take everything you got. Here's to you guys. Friday night. Friday Night Live. Mm. 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 Yeah, when I got drafted in 1967, I was still I'm totally ignorant, man. And hell, I used to loan money. Yeah, some old guy said, "Hey, Rusty, I'm tapped out, man. You spot me 10." He said, "I'll catch you next round." Sure, no problem, dude. Here you go. Never hear nothing, nothing. Well, that happened probably half a dozen times before the light went off. Hey, Rusty, these guys are cons, man. Okay, you know, if you left your Foot Locker unlocked, anything in there of value would be gone. Okay, and it only takes you one time to learn. Well, when I came out of that, I was a little, I was a little bit more aware of human nature. And with that in mind, guys, it's Friday night. I know you guys have all worked extremely hard and are extremely tired and want to enjoy your Friday evening. I got to get rid of this, right? Oh, it already did. I got a telemarketing call, but it doesn't ring or anything. It just gives you a little bar across the top. But anyway, guys, for those of you that grew up in the 50s or 60s or whatever, some of y'all might be able to relate to what I'm talking about. But it was, you know, as far as it's just the way it was then. You know, for kids now, it's the way it is for them, and it's different, of course. You know, they got cell phones and air conditioning everywhere, and you know, cars that are just totally reliable. I mean, I'm sure you guys like me had some old junkers that you know that you had to keep running with baling wire and whatever you could find. But having said that, from Fort Clark Springs on a Friday evening, here's to you guys. Here's to me. Mm-hmm. Muy bueno, guys. Enjoy your Friday evening. Enjoy your weekend. Keep your health. And yeah. Uh, what was that? There's a song about Rover. Oh, let's see. Red Rover, let Rusty come over. Yeah, that's. I was going to name that golf cart Rover, but there's another song about uh, this woman that was around a rover. But anyway, guys, adios amigos. Enjoy your weekend. Bye bye.